The Red Sea is supposed to be one of the busiest commercial highways on Earth. Instead, it's turned into the world's angriest toll booth. Cargo ships, tankers, and even naval vessels have been dodging drones and missiles fired from Yemen, courtesy of the Houthis. This isn't random chaos. It's Iran exporting its brand of cheap asymmetric warfare. And the US, UK, and others? They've been pulled into an expensive game of defense that doesn't have a finish line. So today we're breaking down how a rebel movement in Yemen managed to choke global trade, and why Iran is smiling from the sidelines, and why this so-called traffic jam of death matters way more than you think. The Houthis started as a small Shia insurgency in northern Yemen in the 90s. Back then, their weapons of choice were rifles, roadside bombs, and guerrilla tactics. But the civil war in Yemen changed everything. When Saudi Arabia intervened against them in 2015, Iran saw an opportunity. Tehran began supplying weapons, training, and intelligence. Not enough to turn the Houthis into a modern army, but enough to make them dangerous in the ways that matter most. Now the Houthis control much of Yemen's west, including key coastal areas overlooking the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a choke point that sees about 10% of global trade pass through every year. That's oil, gas, manufactured goods, the lifeblood of Europe and Asia. Think of it this way. The Houthis went from being local rebels to global troublemakers with one simple trick: geography. They're like a neighborhood gang that suddenly realized they live next to the main interstate and decided to set up a toll booth with RPGs. The Houthis don't have stealth jets or nuclear subs. They've got something cheaper: Iranian hand-me-downs. Shahed 136 drones, basically lawnmower engines strapped to explosives. They're loud, slow, and about as stealthy as a weed whacker at 3 a.m. But there are lots of them, and even one slipping through can ruin a ship captain's day. Cruise missiles, knockoffs of older Chinese and Iranian models. Not fancy, but with GPS guidance they can hit tankers at ranges of hundreds of miles. Ballistic missiles. Yes, ballistic missiles at ships. It's absurd, like bringing a sledgehammer to swat a fly. But if one ever connects, it's catastrophic. And here's the kicker. These aren't weapons meant to defeat the US Navy in open battle. They're meant to create chaos, drive up insurance rates, reroute shipping around Africa, and bleed money from anyone trying to keep the sea lanes open. In other words, dollar for dollar, the Houthis are playing Moneyball with missiles. On the other side, you've got US and allied warships, Arleigh Burke destroyers, British Type 45s, using some of the most advanced air defense systems in the world. And they've been busy. The USS Carney alone is reported intercepting over 50 drones and missiles in just a few months. They're using SM-2 and SM-6 missiles, each costing $2 to $4 million to destroy drones worth maybe $20,000. It's like firing a Gucci rocket at a garage sale quadcopter. And it doesn't stop at missiles. Close-in defense systems like the C-RAM and Phalanx Sea-Wiz, those R2-D2 looking turrets, are chewing through threats when missiles aren't practical. But here's the grim reality. Every successful intercept is a win tactically and a loss financially. Iran and the Houthis don't care how many drones get shot down. They care that every time one is launched, the US spends a small fortune swatting it. This isn't just about Yemen. This is Iran's foreign policy in action. Tehran has built a network of proxies: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Shia militias in Iraq, militias in Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen. Each one is a lever they can pull to cause headaches for the West. By arming the Houthis, Iran has basically turned them into a cheap extension of its military. It's a win-win for Tehran. The Houthis get weapons, Iran gets global leverage, and the West gets dragged into a never-ending defensive slog. And don't forget the economic impact. Ships rerouting around Africa instead of transiting the Red Sea adds weeks to voyages and millions in costs. Insurance rates for tankers have spiked. At the end of the day, consumers worldwide end up paying more. For gas, for goods, for everything. That's the brilliance of this play. The Houthis don't need to sink half the global fleet, they just need to create uncertainty. And uncertainty is a weapon of its own. Now here's where it gets interesting. It's not just the US and Europe who care about the Red Sea. China is heavily dependent on imports that transit these waters. And Chinese shipping companies are getting nervous too. So while Washington frames this as counterterrorism, Beijing quietly sees it as a threat to its economy. We could be heading toward a very awkward moment where US and Chinese interests, for once, actually align. But if history teaches us anything, it's that great powers rarely cooperate smoothly. Instead, this could turn into another arena for influence, with the US trying to secure sea lanes and China hedging its bets by cozying up to Iran. Either way, the Houthis probably can't believe their luck. A rebel group in Yemen is now shaping the behavior of the world's two biggest economies. And nuts back there? She's watching billion-dollar ships launch multi-million-dollar missiles at lawnmower drones, and she's thinking, I take down door-to-door salesmen for the cost of a milk bone. Pentagon, call me. I've got a new defense contractor for you. Her office is the couch, and her procurement system runs on squeaky toys. So what happens next? The Houthis aren't going away anytime soon. As long as Iran keeps supplying weapons, they'll keep firing. Every missile that misses still accomplishes the goal: disruption. For the US and allies, this is a war of endurance. You can't bomb your way out of it without escalating into a wider conflict with Iran. But you also can't ignore it, because global trade depends on stability here. This means years, maybe decades of expensive patrols, years of shooting down cheap drones with gold-plated interceptors, years of tankers nervously transiting a choke point where the wrong launch at the wrong time could spark a global crisis. The Red Sea is a reminder that in modern conflict, you don't need stealth bombers or hypersonics to change the world. Sometimes all you need is a handful of drones, a stretch of coastline, and the right patron state backing you. Thanks for sticking with me through this breakdown. And if you made it this far, please consider subscribing. I want to hear your take. Are the Houthis a serious long-term threat to global trade, or just Iran's disposable pawns in a much bigger game? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be there. And so will Nuts, probably judging all of us from her couch.